unit which makes us to understand about, yes, the first semester political science. This is the fourth session in your, classes, virtual classes. The today's topic is approaches of political science. In the approaches of political science, in the last session, we had a discussion on traditional approaches. I'll just explain to you that what we had a session in the yesterday, and I'll just make you to reinforce you for 2 to 3 minutes. Then after we'll get into the new chapter, that is modern approaches in political science. You know, in order to understand the political science very elaborately or very comprehensively, we need to, read two kinds of approaches. One is, traditional approaches. Another one is that modern approaches. Anything which it can be discussed in the past, okay? Anything which get discussed, in the past, which is in the genesis of the political science, and all which comes under the purview of traditional approaches. Is that clear? In the traditional approaches, which I've said, four kinds of, approaches we have seen under the traditional approaches. I think you are well aware of that. We start off with this philosophical approach, legal approach, institutional approach, and also we have discussed another approach. What is the approach? You can text me also. Okay. So, and another approach which I have explained about in legality approach, we'll discuss a thing which is related to the legal things. Okay. One is an historical approach, philosophical approach, historical approach, legal approach, and also we have seen that institutional approach. Accordingly, I have explained you what are the things comes under the institutional approach. Okay, what are the things that comes under the historical approach and legal approach and philosophical approach. So these approaches are truly makes you to understand the concept of, the detail of the political science and very and elaboratively, isn't it? So in this way, and I have told you, and in all the three approaches meaning, and also the same time, what are the one another approaches will explain to you all that I have explained to you. Now, we are going to have discussion on modern approaches of political science. So generally, modern approaches, truly we can define under the behavioral and post-behavioral approach. Okay, behavioral approach and post-behavioral approach. Is that clear? So after the traditional approaches in the political science, should understand that in the modern approaches, two approaches we need to understand in the modern approaches. One is that behavioral approach. Another one is that post-behavioral approach. I think you can see in your book, okay, there which I am explaining to you. One second. That is behavioral approach. See, in the political science, very important concept is behavioral approach. This is a unit 5. Okay. I think if you have the book, exactly you can find the page number 2. Okay. So in the modern approaches, we understand that the concepts of behavioral approach and post-behavioral approach. You may ask the questions to me in a normal understanding. What does it mean post-behavioral approach and what does it mean behavioral approach? I'll just give you the example that the political science is a science which understands things related to the societal matters. If you define the society, in the society, there are a number of people, there are a number of castes, there are a number of their, kinds of tradition, culture, the way they live are quite different from one another. Of course, India is a multicultural country where we have a number of, cultures. We see people when they practice, isn't it? So all such behavior, to understand the kinds of a societal behavior, and based on the societal behavior, and on the based on their, a kind of, the state behavior, all the behavioral matters which we understand into the modern approach. Are you clear? Is that what I'm saying? Are you all understanding? Isn't it? So let me speaks that. The process of government is a very important factor. The process of government is varied from one another, isn't it? One another country, isn't it? See, for example, we can't say Indian government similar to the, United States of American government. United American government, if you see, that is in presidential form of government. Similarly, if you could see in India, you have a quasi-federal system, and we follow the parliamentary form of government. Is that clear? So in keeping in view of that, there are many, along with this, there are many changes has come in the society, in the political system, and all of them, isn't it? 1 second. Who have shared this? Don't share, okay? Isn't it? So when you come to the point of this, understand the process of government, their behavior, we understand in the political science very, extensively as a part of the behavioralism. Of course, this behavioralism not only can understand by the political science students, but also it also understand by other social sciences like psychology, sociology. Even you also can understand about even in the other social sciences which are part of this behavioralism. Especially if you see the behavioralism in the political science, there are a number of scholars which I've explained to you. American political scientists like David E. Truman, Robert Dahl, Patrick, Charles E. Merriam, David Easton, okay, and all of them mainly and focused on and kind of on behavioralism and post-behavioralism factors. So this mainly which we can see the changes of the political system, truly it has happened across the world after the Second World War. I have explained to you the Second World War when it takes place and all of them in the previous sessions also, which makes you to understand, isn't it? So as to understand the behavior of the political system, the behavior of every individual or behavior of the government, we need to understand the modern approaches. In the modern approaches, the first approach, subfield approach is a behavioral approach. Let us will have an understand, and as per the definitions of the few of the scholars, what is the meaning of this behavioral approach? Let me tell you that. Behavioral approach stands as an important milestone in the study of political science, and it overruled the traditional approaches, even the philosophical ideology, legal and institutional approaches. It makes it a new trend in the political science to understand the new changes into the, political systems or political phenomena of a country as well as across the world, isn't it? The political analysis, according to that, conceived individuals to understand behavior, it necessary within a social and cultural environment. So every individual understanding is an essence. Okay, without an individual understanding, you can't understand the complete, political science. So if you see the first, if you want to understand the complete behavioral approaches, it has its, it has its own objectives. Okay, to understand the behavior of individual, the behavior of a political, process or political phenomena, we understand in the behavioral approach. To understand the behavioral approaches, at the same time, we need to understand objectives of a behavioral approach. What are the objectives of the behavioral approach? Let me, tell one by one. You can see in your book also, that is, I'll tell you the page number even, so that you can easily identify what I'm teaching. Page number 43, you can see in your book, if you have the books, and in the page number 43, there are objectives. Let me speak. First one, to obtain political orientation through direct inquiry rather than through interference from the writers of intellectual. Okay. In the objectives of this behavioral approach, the first objective is that we understand the orientations of entire political systems of the world. First objective tells you that entire political systems of the world and as well as to the country we understand in the behavioral approach. Let me tell you political orientation, political phenomena, the politics of them. How do we understand that? Say, for example, what is I'm giving the example for the first and objective. How do we understand this political orientation? See, I was telling you the example in the beginning. Could you relate India's government behavior? Could you relate the same behavior of the Chinese government? You can't. Chinese government, it follows a communistic system. Okay. It's a communistic ideology. And when it comes to the point of that, we follows the kind of an ideology is called democracy and parliamentary form of government. So we understand as being a part of this behavior approach about orientations of the one country to another country and entire the political process of the country, political process, political phenomena, all of them we understand, and through the help of this behavioral approach. Let me tell you, how do we understand the such process? That there are many scholars which have wrote, Charles Merriam, David Easton, and if you see the many of an American scholars names, Charles Merriam, David Easton, and all of them, this all of them, they makes us to understand about the concept of government and their political phenomena. If you'd like to understand the quality of United States of America, we start understanding from separation of power, which is written by the theory of Montesquieu. Okay, theory which is separation of power, which developed by the author and the great scholar in the political science and the thinker in the political science, is a Montesquieu, isn't it? We understand the Montesquieu theory. Where do we read the Montesquieu theory? Means you can understand the Montesquieu theory completely in the political science as a subject, isn't it? This is the one. So first objective is that understand the certain political orientation across the world. Okay. Understand the certain political phenomena of a country or some other country, we need to understand the behavioral approach. That is the first object. Next one. We also can obtain systematically collected data rather than data obtained through the casual means such as conversations and inadequate samples. And this behavioral approach not only makes us to understand the different political orientations of the different countries across the world, but also it makes us to understand exhaust in data and with evidences and even with the different kinds of conversations. So political behavior orientation, not only we can understand the behavioral approach, but also we can understand the things, data and the history and all of them we can, collect from this behavioral approach about various countries' administration. Similarly, if you could understand the third objective of it, give qualitative meaning to such words as a characteristics usually found in studies of political attitudes. I'll tell you the one example that we understand the studies of political attitudes. Let's say, for example, political attitudes makes us to understand the system of a polity. For example, say some countries follow the kind of system monopoly, means one government will be there who can look after entire world. You tell me that in which is the best country, or will be the one king and who will look after entire the systems of the country. Most probably we see in the presidential form of countries who ruled it. So this is kind of a stature of the political attitude. Say, for example, monarchical system, okay, and the democratic system, similarly parliamentarian system, okay, aristocratic system. All of this we can understand as being a part of this, behavioral approach. Hope you clear that in the third objective. Similarly, the fourth objective, which makes you to understand, discovered through the systematic inquiry. We not only political attitude understand as someone says and just whatever you observe, but we also conduct, as being a political science in the behavioral approach, it makes you to understand a very practical knowledge to you by systematic inquiry. Okay, it does a systematic inquiry, and also at the same time, it makes you to understand the things about and how systems has been flourished into some other countries. You clear that what I'm trying to tell? So these are all objectives. If you see the other objectives of this, easily you can understand the concept of that what I am trying to say. And last objective, behavioral approach will explain attitudes of the polity of the country and also political phenomena of the country and the different systems of the political system across the world. All such things which we understand in the behavioral approach to the many scholars in the political science. Is that clear to everyone? So what is, in a simple, I'll tell you. Behavioral approach, I'm speaking in some time in Telugu. Whatever I spoke English so far, and I just wanted to tell you because of majority of them, so that I understand the Telugu, I'll take it as some terminology to speak with your permission. Behavioral approach అనేది ప్రపంచ స్థాయిలో ఉన్నటువంటి రాజకీయ విషయాల గురించి కావచ్చు, రాజకీయాలు సంబంధించినటువంటి ప్రక్రియ గురించి, అంటే అక్కడ ఉన్నటువంటి ఏ సిస్టమ్స్ ని ఫాలో అప్ చేస్తున్నారు, what kind of here the systems they are following, and what kind of the political system which exists in the country, and all of them. Okay, so it comes under the purview into the behavioral approach. Simple in English, I'll tell you. Behavioral approach, it tells you to understand, okay, the things which are related to the political process of the country, okay, and it also makes you to understand different political phenomena of various countries, how USA's political system, how UK's political behavior, how Chinese political behavior, how Indian political behavior, all such things, it makes you to understand as a part of this, behavioral approach. यहाँ पे behavioral approach देखिए, एक कंट्री का पॉलिटिकल प्रोसेस कैसे माने जाता, वहां पे वोटिंग बिहेवियर कैसा रहता, और इंडिविजुअल का कैसा यहाँ पे किरदार निभाना पड़ता, और कौन से कंट्रीज किसी तरह के गवर्नमेंट को यहाँ पे फॉलो अप कर रहे हैं, ताकि वो पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम है या नहीं तो ताकि वो आई मीन प्रेसिडेंशियल फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट को यहाँ पे फॉलो कर रहे हैं, सारे सिस्टम्स को यहाँ पर आई मीन पॉलिटिकल बिहेवियरलिज्म में यहाँ पर पढ़ाया जाता। सिर्फ पॉलिटिकल रिलेटेड थिंग्स को यहाँ पे जानने के लिए, सारे देश का पॉलिटिक्स को सही तरीके से यहाँ पे जानने के लिए, और वो कैसा पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम्स यहाँ पे एस्टेब्लिश किया गया, उसका कैसा इन्फ्लुएंस है पब्लिक के ऊपर, सारे चीज को यहाँ पे कौन से अप्रोच में पढ़ाई जाता, मतलब बिहेवियरल अप्रोच में। ये बिहेवियरल अप्रोच कौन से आई मीन अप्रोचेस के अंदर आ जा, आई मीन इट कम्स अंडर मींस it comes under the purview of a modern approaches. Is that clear to everyone? So what I'm trying to tell it here is that modern approach, which makes you to understand very clearly about political orientation, political attitude, and political phenomena, all of them, which you can understand as being a part of this behavioral approach. This approach, which lays in the political science as a part of modern approaches. Is that clear to everyone? So we'll go on to that. So after this, that which I will tell you that growth of behavioral approach, how it has happened. Growth of behavioral approach has evolved itself in the 3 distinct phases. नॉर्मल का अगर आपको behavioral approaches stages wise के तरह अगर आप जानना चाहते हैं, behavioral approach का growth यहाँ पे जैसा evolution 3 stages में हुआ है, and behavioral approach, the development which has happened in the 3 level, first phase, the second phase, थर्ड फेज। जैसे यहाँ पे फर्स्ट फेज में इसको क्या इंपॉर्टेंस दिया गया, उसी तरह की पॉलिटिक्स कहां से कहां तक यहाँ पे अंडरस्टैंड कर सकते, isn't it? So then the first phase I would like to tell you, simple, you need not to confuse it, simple, I'll just make it as कि अगर आपके पॉलिटिकल अगर तेलंगाना पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में यहाँ पे जानना चाहते हैं, तेलंगाना का पॉलिटिकल बिहेवियर होता है। अगर आप आंध्र प्रदेश के हैं, आंध्र प्रदेश का पॉलिटिकल बिहेवियर को आप जानना चाहते हो, वो आंध्र प्रदेश का पॉलिटिकल बिहेवियर होता है। अगर आप అదే విధంగా మీరు అమెరికాకి సంబంధించినటువంటి పొలిటికల్ బిహేవియర్, రాజకీయ ప్రవర్తన గురించి మీరు తెలుసుకోవాలని అనుకున్నప్పుడు అది అమెరికాకి సంబంధించినటువంటి అమెరికాకి సంబంధించినటువంటి పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమ్స్ గురించి తెలుసుకుంటారు. అంటే ప్రపంచ దేశాలలో అన్ని రాజకీయాల గురించి, అన్ని పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమ్స్ గురించి మీరు ఎక్కడ నేర్చుకుంటారంటే బిహేవియరల్ అప్రోచ్ లో నేర్చుకుంటారు. యూ కెన్ అండర్స్టాండ్ అక్రాస్ ద వరల్డ్ వైడ్ పొలిటికల్ ఆటిట్యూడ్, పొలిటికల్ ఓరియంటేషన్, పొలిటికల్ ఫెనామినా. ఇస్ దట్ క్లియర్ టు ఎవ్రీవన్? సో సింపుల్ గా మీరు బిహేవియరలిజం అనే కాన్సెప్ట్ ఎందుకు వచ్చింది పొలిటికల్ సైన్స్ లో, क्यों यहाँ पे बिहेवियरलिज्म को लाया गया, व्हाई द बिहेवियरल अप्रोच हैज कम इनटू द पॉलिटिकल साइंस मींस, अगर आप यहाँ पे आज मैं बैठा हूं यहाँ पर, ओके, अगर आप यहाँ पे सारी तरह से क्लासेस सुन रहे हैं, तो यहाँ पे मैंने बता रहा हूँ कि चार्ल्स मेरियम का आइडियोलॉजी क्या है, अरिस्टोटल कैसे यहाँ पर को पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम्स को यहाँ पे फादर ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस कैसे बनाए गए, या तो अमेरिका का पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम कैसा है, अब इलेक्शंस कैसे हो रहे, सारे चीज यहाँ पर कैसे माना जाते हैं, क्योंकि बिहेवियरलिज्म में आप इस सारे इंफॉर्मेशन को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए पॉलिटिकल साइंस में कौन सा पार्ट में पढ़ाया जाता, मतलब बिहेवियरलिज्म में पढ़ाया जाता. यू विल अंडरस्टैंड that certain things, all of them, it being a part of the political science about nations politics and different political phenomena, different countries political systems and all of them. Are you clear with that? So then ऐसे चीज को देखिए, यहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल बिहेवियर 20 साल पहले एक जैसा रहता, ओके, और 100 years ago it was a some other thing. At the same time, 100 years after, the political system will be a change. It can't be a kind of static or status quo, and it's not also as an anti-status quo. सुनिए, यहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम कभी भी यहाँ पे स्टेबल नहीं रहेगा, और इसी साथ साथ उसको और चेंज भी हुएगा. And all these things, changing process and all of them, what it happens here is that we understand that these changes in the political systems of across the world, we need to understand the behavioralism as phases wise. One's first stage, second stage, and third stage. When I was telling you about in political science, traditional approaches बोला गया, तो देखिए यहाँ पे टाइम को यहाँ पे डिवाइड किया जाता कि अब 12th century तो को एंशिएंट सिस्टम आता, 14th and 16th century को बीच को मिडवल पीरियड किया गया, कहा गया, 16 के बाद में अभी तक इसको मॉडर्न पीरियड में यहाँ पे कहा जाता. నార్మల్ గా ఇక్కడ అంటే గతంలో జరిగినటువంటి విషయాలన్నింటినీ కూడా అన్షియన్ పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమ్స్ లో చదివాను. అండ్ తర్వాత చేంజెస్ అంటే ఆధునికత మోడర్న్ టైం కి వెళ్ళకన్నా ముందు ఆ మధ్యస్థంగా ఉన్నటువంటి కాలాన్ని మిడ్వెల్ పీరియడ్ అంటాం. సో అదే విధంగా ఎన్ని చేంజెస్ వచ్చాయి పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమ్. ఇప్పుడు 1950s కన్నా ముందు, బిఫోర్ 1950s అవర్ ఇండియాస్ అడ్మినిస్ట్రేషన్ వాజ్ అండర్ ద కంట్రోల్ ఆఫ్ colonialism. Am I clear? 1950s tarvata we started in a kind of an independence administration. We become an independent country. We started our administrations and independent. Is that clear? So soon after that, we also adopted the kind of an international relations after the 1970, 80. So the step by step, world politics are being changing. So in order to understand the changes of the world politics, also we could understand as a part of this political science, isn't it? So especially in which area of the political science you will understand the changes of entire political systems of the world. And there are three, phases of behavioral approach. Let me tell you. First, behavioral approach. And first phase of behavioral approach. ఎప్పటి నుంచి స్టార్ట్ అవుతుంది? ఓకే, బిహేవియరలిజం లో ఒకవేళ అండ్ ఇక్కడ టైం ప్రకారంగా చదువుకుంటూ పోతే ఈ టైంలో ఇది స్టార్ట్ అవుతుంది. ఫస్ట్ ఫేజ్ ఆఫ్ బిహేవియరలిజం. Let us see the first phase of the behavioralism here is that it starts from 1960. Let me tell you, growth of behavioral approach have changed, and it started to understand the changes of the world political system after 1960s, right till the development of post-behavioral movement. Okay, the first phase is the mark an increasing use of empirical and qualitative methods. Political scientists like Stuart Rice, Harold Laswell begin to employ the qualitative data and statistical table in their writing. And this phase is very important in the first phase as being a part of this behavioral approach. यहाँ पे सारे इसको at the same time, in order to make you to understand the changes of the entire political system, it has happened in the beginning about an entirely very scientifically. Stuart Rice have made it as some techniques to understand. Harold Laswell makes you to understand some of the techniques here. Let me tell you. The techniques are, if you see, a salient features of this behavioral approach, if you could understand by the David Easton, who tells us about regularities. Okay, you can say verification, techniques, quantification, values, systematization, new science, integration. In order to understand the changes of entire political system, we follows a kind of techniques, methods, you can say. What are the techniques? Who have proponed such techniques to understand that? David Easton and the famous because of the political sciences makes you to understand the techniques of behavioral approach to understand completely. What is the first technique? That I'll tell you. Regularities. Behavioralist, what is the meaning of regularities to understand the techniques of behavioralism? The behavioralist maintain that there are certain observable uniform patterns in the political behavior which can be expressed in the theory. Say for example, what did happen in the regularities means these behavioral thinkers have made it to make you to understand entire the world political system with the help of theories. So behavioral approaches will make you to understand the system of politics of world through the theories. To convey, to know the knowledge to the theories about changes of the politics is called as an behavioral approach, isn't it? Regularities is a method, the first technique which used to understand the entire and system of political behavior to the theories is called also techniques of behavioralism. What is that? Let's see, for example. Theories lo cheptunnappudu ante ఏం రెగ్యులారిటీస్ చెప్తుంది అంటే 1950s కన్నా ముందు పొలిటికల్ ఓటింగ్ సిస్టమ్స్ అనేది వేరేలా ఉండే. 1950s తర్వాత ఓటింగ్ సిస్టమ్స్ అనేది చేంజ్ అయింది. ప్రస్తుతం ఒక రకమైనటువంటి ఓటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ ఉంది. ఇండియాలో ఒక ఓటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ ఉంది, ప్రపంచవ్యాప్తంగా ఒక ఓటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ ఉంది, యుఎస్ఏలో ఒక ఓటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ ఉంది. సో ఆల్ దీస్ డైవర్సిఫైడ్ థింగ్స్ అండ్ డైవర్సిఫైడ్ నాలెడ్జ్ which makes you to understand in the behavioral approach as a technique to the regularities, isn't it? So and in the second technique, if you could see, verification. According to behavioralist, knowledge in order to be valid should be, include only those proportions which it can be empirically tested and verified. Whatever you study, like, so for example, political science law, ఏది పడితే అది చదవలేరు. ఓకే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నేను పొలిటికల్ బిహేవియర్ అంటాను. పొలిటికల్ బిహేవియర్ లో అన్ని చదువుతామా అంటే నో. We study something which is related to us as a studies. Okay, something which makes you to understand, okay, which are helpful to the political science, isn't it? So verification is a method to understand if anything, any political changes, if it is so scientifically proven, if it is truly and is related to the political science, then only it can discuss under the behavioral approach. That's the second, technique which is said by the David Distance to understand the, behavioral approach. Techniques unnai. The third technique, behavioralist, and in the third method of David Distance, techniques means teaching for collecting and interpreting data. For this, they suggest use of the sophisticated tools like a multivariative analysis and mathematical methods to simulation. అంటే ఒక దేశంకి సంబంధించినటువంటి పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమ్ గురించి అర్థం చేసుకోవడానికి చాలా టెక్నిక్స్ ఉంటాయి నాన్న. यहाँ पे सब सारे टेक्निक्स बहुत ज्यादा है कि एक कंप्लीट पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम्स को यहाँ पे मानने के लिए बहुत सारा के टेक्निक्स होते हैं. वो टेक्निक्स भी साइंस में हो सकते हैं, मैथमेटिक्स में हो सकते हैं, isn't it? For example, if I make you to understand the, war between one another country, okay, so we understand the one mathematical theory which is called zero game theory. Okay, ante to understand the two nations waritic condition, we explain the process of the war into the zero game theory. This is a completely mathematic theory, and it is you shall understand the zero game theory or chicken game theory, all these theories into the higher level. In the 4th and 5th semester, you shall understand in the international relation, that being a part of the political science, especially about the noting political behaviors of the world countries, isn't it? So we had techniques like, say for example, zero game theory, chicken game theory, systematic theory, systems theory, all these theories which we will understand in the political science to understand the particular political behaviors of the world. Next one, quantification, isn't it? The quantifications of the method what we use in this one, behavioralist means ఏదైతే చదివినటువంటి అన్ని విషయాలు ఉన్నాయి, ఏదైతే పొలిటికల్ చేంజెస్ సంబంధించినటువంటి ప్రపంచవ్యాప్తంగా జరుగుతున్నటువంటి పొలిటికల్ చేంజెస్ గురించి అండ్ యాజ్ వెల్ యాజ్ టు ద పొలిటికల్ బిహేవియర్స్ గురించి అన్నిటి గురించి హియర్ అండ్ వి క్వాంటిఫైడ్ ఇట్ మీన్స్ అందరి ఒకే రకంగా సైంటిఫిక్ నేచర్ లో అంత నాలెడ్జ్ ను ఒక బుక్ రూపంలో కానీ లేకపోతే ఒక ఆర్క్యూ రూపంలో కానీ పెడతాం. ఇవన్నీ కూడా బిహేవియరల్ టెక్నిక్స్ ద్వారా సాధ్యం అన్నమాట. వాల్యూస్ ఉంటాయి. సో వి ఆల్సో క్లియర్లీ బిహేవియరలిస్ట్ ఇన్సిస్టెడ్ దట్ క్లియర్ కట్ లైన్ ఆఫ్ డిస్టింక్షన్ షుడ్ బి డ్రాన్ ఫ్రమ్ బిట్వీన్ ఎథికల్ ఎవల్యూషన్ అండ్ ఎంపిరికల్ ఎక్స్ప్లెనేషన్. What is ethical evolution? Ethical in the sense means is a concern, moral of the person, okay, lives of the person, respect their culture and traditions, on all of them it comes under the purview of ethical. And the behavioral approach will make you to understand the things which are related to the cultural matters of the country, and another side it also makes you to understand the things which is related to the political systems of the country. So behavioral approach through the value system is not only makes you to understand the only political behavior, but also ethical behaviors of every individual, ethical evolutions of every individual in the country. We understand as a part of the behavioralism. Then after systematization, pure science, integration. So these are all three techniques altogether, which I will tell you. We do integrations of it. Say, for example, culture of in India, culture of United States of America, political systems of in India, political systems of another country. It's been integrated and it can be studied. So overall, which I wanted to tell you here is that understanding the complete political behaviors of the world being a part of the behavioral approach. మీరు పొలిటికల్ సైన్స్ లో బిహేవియరల్ కనుక అప్రోచ్ చదివితే మీ ప్రపంచంలో జరిగేటటువంటి రాజకీయాలు కావచ్చు, ప్రపంచంలో ఉన్నటువంటి పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమ్స్ గురించి కావచ్చు, ఈజీగా అర్థం చేసుకుంటారు. अगर आप यहाँ पे बिहेवियरल अप्रोच पढ़ते हैं पॉलिटिकल साइंस में, सारे देश की पॉलिटिक्स, बल्कि यहाँ पे सारी दुनिया की पॉलिटिक्स को आप समझ सकते हैं. इसी यहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम्स को और वेथिकल सिस्टम्स को, यहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल फिनोमिना को, सारे चीज को आप पढ़ सकते हैं बिहेवियरलिज्म. isn't it? So next one, यहाँ पे even after that, after even quantification, integration and techniques and all of them, after studying the particulars, studies of changes in the political systems across the world, even there are many changes has comes after this 20th century. Okay, anything which changes in the newly in the political system, that it can be understood in the political post-behavioral approach. Isn't it? Post-behavioral approach, if you see this one, post-behavioralism was mainly a reaction to the basic assumption of behavioralism, isn't it? In terms of role of techniques and values in social sciences. And it came a challenge to abstract theorizing by the behavioral thinkers. What their beliefs that? By the end of 1960s, even the exponents of the behavioralism realized that the pure science was responsible for the failure addressed to the, pressing social and political issues of the period. No, I'll tell you. బిహేవియరలిజం లో జరిగినటువంటి తప్పులని సరిదిద్దడానికి వచ్చినటువంటి అప్రోచే పోస్ట్ బిహేవియరల్ అప్రోచ్. Whatever the things has happened wrongly, whatever the things it was no science and scientificity in the behavioral approach, in order to rectify it, in order to omit the mistakes of the particular behavioral approach, the new approach has come into the effect. That is post-behavioral approach. And how do we understand the post-behavioral approach? There is no much meaning to the post-behavioral approach. Simple, I'll tell you. You did entire the work. Okay, you did entire the work about knowing and political systems of the Telangana. For example, I'm an individual. I know I was trying since 1 year to know the systems of an entire Telangana. I got it. So when I submitted my report to someone, those who are actually then whatever the mistakes I did it, correcting such mistakes, that it can be called it as a kind of post-behavioral approach, isn't it? So జరిగినటువంటి తప్పులని behavioral approach లో సరిదిద్దడానికి, లేకపోతే if anything goes less, and in order to add it something new to the behavioral approach, it is called it as a post-behavioral approach. And after 1960s and still the post-behavioralism approach, and which makes you to understand the present changes of the world political system. What are the techniques to know? And again, David Easton have made it in some of and techniques, some of methods to understand the present political system changes. And that is called tenets of post-behavioralism approach. What are the tenets of the post-behavioralism approach? These tenets which makes you to understand what means ఏదైతే present changes political systems లో, political orientation లో, political behavior లో వస్తుందో, present changes 21st century, ఇవన్నీ కూడా దేంట్లో నేర్చుకుంటామంటే here in the post-behavioralism we understand that, isn't it? So in keeping in view of that, what do we, here we say, we is a tenant. And in the David Easton's have explained, as a part of the tenants, if you see this one, and this approach, emphasis should be social change and not the social preservation. అంటే ఈ అప్రోచ్ ఏంటంటే ఉద్దేశం, యాజ్ పర్ ద డేవిడ్ ఈస్టన్, గతంలో జరిగినటువంటి పొలిటికల్ సిస్టమా లేకపోతే సొసైటీ నేర్చుకోవడం కాదు, ఇప్పుడు వస్తున్నటువంటి ఏదైతే చేంజెస్ ఉన్నాయో ఆ చేంజెస్ అన్నిటిని కూడా అర్థం చేసుకోవడానికే and help చేసేటటువంటి approach post-behavioralism approach. And the post-behavioralism approach did not focus on the preservations of the knowledge of the polity, but it focuses on to the what are the changes is being takes place in the present world. It can studies under the part of the post-behavioral approach. Let's say, for example, Myanmar politics, it's been changing. Sri Lanka politics, it's been changing. Indian political system, it's been changing. So all the changes of the political systems presently we understand as being a part of the post-behavioral approach. Is that clear to everyone? And you know that. And if you see, whatever the unclear thing is there, in order to understand very clearly, the post-behavioralism approach is there. This post-behavioralism approach make political science reach out to the real needs of mankind at times of crisis. See, oka vyakti normal ga unnatvanti vyakti oka rajyamlo saraina reethilo nivasinchalani anukunnappudu ataniki kavalsinatvanti avasaralu ela undali, ala government atani help cheyali, వాటన్నిటిని గురించి కూడా ఫోకస్ చేసి చెప్పేటటువంటి అప్రోచే ఇది పోస్ట్ బిహేవియరల్ అప్రోచ్. The behavioral approach, you know that this is very quite opposite to the behavioralism. Behavioralism focuses on the things to know the world political systems and world political changes. And in the past, when it comes to the post-behavioralism, it makes you to understand the things which are related to the present changes and how the changes which are very important to the every individual of the country. Okay. So how the every individual get benefited under the politics and state. This will make you to understand. Okay. This is one. And also this, and also at the same time, the political and post-behavioralism makes you to understand that knowledge to and knowledge of the present system, knowledge of many governments into the particular nation. Similarly, it also makes you to understand that how an individual in the country should live. Okay. So for example, I'm a citizen of India. How should I live with the government? Okay. How I should protect myself, isn't it? I need fundamental rights. I need fundamental duties. I need to protection. I need given welfare principles and all of that. Similarly, what it requires for the individual development, these are all the things which is understand, which makes the best civilization, which makes the better human being of a state. The post-behavioralism approaches makes you to understand. This is what, and the post-behavioralism and behavioralism approach. I'll once again, I'll repeat it that so that you can understand easily that in simple way, what is modern approach? Once again, I'm repeating it. Modern approach is an approach to make you to understand the present and contemporary political phenomena of the world as well as to the country, isn't it? And the present political systems of the world, how it is being changing. Understand entire the changes of the world political system. Modern approaches makes you to understand in the two different approaches. One is behavioral approach, another one is a post-behavioral approach. Behavioral approach, which makes you to understand only past political systems of the world until 1960. What is, here the post-behavioralism. After the changes of this behavioralism, after 1960 to till now, what are the changes has been taking place in the political systems of the world, and what are the things as very important, and all such things make you to understand as being a part of the post-behavioralism approach. Post-behavioralism approach, if you see the techniques of the, according to David Easton, what he says that, okay, prapancha rajakiyaలలో లేకపోతే ప్రపంచ పొలిటికల్ ఫెనామినాలో చేంజెస్ వస్తాయా రావా తర్వాత విషయం. కానీ ఒక ఇండివిజువల్ వ్యక్తికి ఎలాంటి అవసరాలు ఉండాలి, ఏ విధంగా గవర్నమెంట్ ఉపయోగపడాలనేటువంటి థింగ్స్ ని కూడా చెప్పేటటువంటి సిస్టమ్ ఎక్కడ మనం నేర్చుకుంటామంటే పోస్ట్ బిహేవియరలిజం అప్రోచ్ లో we understand that, isn't it? The post-behavioralism approach make you to understand especially the areas of, the present political system, how individual life is very important, how government should help the individual persons and all of them, and how, government focuses on the protections of an individual, how government should be and build up and flourish, and all such things as being a part and parcel of this Post-Behavioralism Approach. This is an Unit 5 modern approaches that I have explained to you. One is that in a behavioral approach, another one is in post-behavioral approach. And the behavioral approach features and objectives are developed by David Easton. He's a thinker of political science. Similarly, the tenets of this post-behavioralism also, which have been explained by David Easton, isn't it? So this, and next, we'll try to understand and just give you the introductions about, and this 6th unit, system and structural functional approaches. Okay. After this, modern approaches and traditional approaches, in order to understand the entire political systems of the whole countries, we need to entire the political phenomena of various countries, especially to the nation. Even we need to understand the functional approaches. Okay. What are the functional approaches? What is the importance of the functional approach? I'll tell you that one. Now, here in the functional approaches, the first approach I'll make you to understand that is a system approach. Okay. Systems approach. దీన్ని జనరల్ గా తెలుగులో ఏమంటామంటే పద్ధతి. ఓకే. లేకపోతే ఒక రకమైనటువంటి వే ఆఫ్ మెథడ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ ద థింగ్స్ అబౌట్ అ నేషన్. सिस्टम्स अप्रोच, यहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम्स को प्रीवियस में कैसा यहाँ पे पढ़ाया गया, वो सारे चीज अपन we understand as a part of the traditional approaches. Similarly, if you see this one, what are the changes are being coming in the present, we understand as a part of modern approaches. And how actually we need to understand as an individual to the political phenomena, and what is general systems of the complete country, we understand through the systems approach. And which approaches is being a part of means functional approach. Okay. If you see the systems approach, okay, what it is explaining that. And also it's been called it as a systems theory. Okay, systems theory. What is a systems theory explains that. First, you need to understand what is the meaning of a systems theory. I'll explain to you. There are core thinkers in the political science which makes you to understand the systems approach. Okay. Among them, Robert A. Dahl, thinker, a famous thinker in the political science, have defined the meaning of systems approach. What is a systems approach meaning? According to Robert A. Dahl, any collection of elements that interact in some way with another. Okay. Any collection of elements that interact in some way with one another, generally it can discuss under the systems approach, isn't it? So anything, and I got this he has explained. ఏదైనా పొలిటికల్ ఫినామినా కి సంబంధించినటువంటి కలెక్షన్ ఒక कांसेप्ट तो इंको कांसेप्ट, एक कांसेप्ट और दूसरे कांसेप्ट तो ओवरलैप हो रहा है, इन सारे चीज को यहाँ पर कहाँ पे पढ़ सकते हैं, मतलब सिस्टम अप्रोच में पढ़ते. And also according to Ackoff, what he is explained that a system is an entity that consists of independent but interrelated parts. Okay, I'll make you to understand. In a system approach, according to the Ackoff, he says that whole nation political systems ni నేర్చుకోవడం కాదు, or within the one political system we have a lots of verticals and lots of aspects. In order to understand the many of aspects of this political systems of within the country, that is also called it as a system theory, isn't it? The whole politics గురించి చదవడం కాకుండా కేవలం ఒక పార్ట్ గురించి, ఒక పర్టికులర్ గురించి, అంటే సే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ రిలీజియస్ గురించి కావచ్చు, ఒక కాస్ట్ గురించి కావచ్చు, रिजर्वेशन गुరించి కావచ్చు, ये सारे चीज के बारे में एक ही चीज के बारे में डिटेल में यहाँ पे पढ़ाया गया, तो उसको भी सिस्टम अप्रोच के नीचे लिया जाता. एंड दिस इज डिफाइंड बाय Ackoff, Robert A. Dahl Ackoff. And also at the same time, Bretland Fee. Brundtland Fee, define the system approach as a set of elements standing in interaction. Okay, set of elements which are into the interactions. Let's say, for example, I'll make you to understand that economic system of the country, okay, and cultural systems of the country, religious phenomena of the country, ఇవన్నీ కూడా అర్థం చేసుకునేటటువంటి కాన్సెప్ట్ సిస్టమ్. ఎకనామికల్ సిస్టమ్స్ ఆఫ్ ద కంట్రీ, one element standing in interaction. Like say for example, economics ki religious ki ఏ విధమైనటువంటి ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్స్ ఉంటుంది, ఎకనామికల్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్ కి పొలిటికల్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్ లో ఎలా డిఫరెన్సెస్ వస్తాయి, and all such things we will understand this being a part of the the systems approach. I'll tell you in a detailed way. Like say for example, budget. Okay, let me tell you that if a state has a less budget for this year, means it the one element it's standing interaction with other. అంటే ఒక ఎలిమెంట్ వల్ల ఒక ఎలిమెంట్ చేంజ్ చేస్తే చాలా ఎలిమెంట్స్ లో చేంజ్ వస్తాయి. ఓకే, and one element it causes of many changes into the state, it's called as a system. Let me tell you, budget is the one aspect, economic aspects. If a budget is low for any of one sector, will not be an affected to the one particular sector, will not affected the one group of community. If the budget is less allocated to them, surely it is unallocated, isn't it? So such kind of a concept we understand as a being a part of the systems approach. So we take it as a granted for a one and after to the system approach, and how economic systems will bringing an influence on the human institutions, and how caste, religion, family, languages, and all of them, it's been affected by the state, all of the things which we understand as a part of the systems and subsystem approach, isn't it? So in the next class, we shall understand David Easton's input and output model, and that is in page number 53. Then after that, we'll understand the structural functional analysis of Gabriel Allman. And after that, we'll go to understand the next concept, Marxist and neo-Marxist approach. It is a very, easy. Somewhat these approaches are a little tough to understand in a one class, but you try to read it out once I am telling you so that you can understand very easily. So if any sort of the questions you have, you can, ask me only subject matter. I'll give you 4 minutes of time to ask the questions to me. You can ask the questions now. Yes, please.
What is pure science?
Pure science means, the meaning of the pure science, which you can tell, understanding purely the political phenomena of the country, that's political science. Okay, if anything, it can be studied about a particular thing, okay, with the scientificity, okay, with practical manner, that it can be called it as a purity.
It involves theory and practical both, right, sir? Like application and that.
What is it?
Pure science.
Speak loudly, please.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Value neutral meaning, sir?
Value neutral in the sense means, say for example, anything, if it is changes as not takes place into the value. Let's say for example, values means caste, okay, you can say as an ethical matters of the states and all of things. If anything changes are not being takes place, it's called as a neutral. So value neutral. If any value is not been changing, and that it can be called it as a static, that is called value neutral. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, what is political theorist?
Political theory is that there are two letters, polity and theory.
Yes.
Theory means anything which it can studied in a very practical or in a systematic manner, that it can be called as a theory. Polity means state and state related institutions, means understanding the societal structure or understanding the different political institutions is called as a polity. So systematically altogether, these two meaning when you link them, systematically understanding the organization setup or government institutions is called it as a political theory. Okay, understanding the politics, political matters in a very systematic way, it can be called it as a political theory, isn't it?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much for responding. It's Abdul Rabas. Sir, could you please give us some important main points of the political science main subjects so that we can get prepared for the exams?
So there is no.
We just talk.
Yeah,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I understand exactly what your concern, what you're trying to speak. But all this, whatever I'm teaching, it is all important, which I can't give you the important questions. If anything such required, you please contact to the study center.
You didn't get my point, sir. I understand that. What do you mean to say? But I mean to know, could you please give us the main objects of the sessions which you just told us about? Like the main topics we can look into the manually.
So that's what I'm saying. Entire book itself is important. Entire units are important. I understand your concern.
Yeah.
Still, if you would like to take it towards any important thing, and there are faculties at the center, you please contact to the nearest center of Ambedkar University so that they will tell you.
Okay? Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Contemplative science means?
Sorry?
Contemplative science.
Contemplation or contemplative science means if anything which is, I mean, out of the political science. Okay, if anything out of the political science, that it can be called it as a contemplative. Anything else?
So what is Credo of Relevance?
Sorry?
Credo of Relevance. Like post-behavioralism is in the form of Credo of Relevance.
Credo of Relevance.
Credo of Relevance, yes, sir.
Relevance is a matter is just related to the political science, okay? Which is, for example, relevance, that in Credo of Relevance is that nothing but, you know, that, for example, where it is actually, pronounced very exactly the letter, where did you see in the book?
Yes, sir, it's Credo of Relevance. Like the David Easton observed that the tenets of post-behavioralism form a Credo of Relevance.
Okay.
It's in post-behavioralism, sir. Like before the tenets point.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir. Yeah. Please. It's only the relevance to the political system that it means, according to David Easton. Okay.
Sir, please give more examples in every unit, sir.
I'm almost giving a lots of example. Truly, which because of very, very less classes we have, less time which is imposed. So that's the reason I can't take it in. But even then, I'm trying to give you the example. Okay, I'm trying to speak in 3 different languages. So, and I'll give you, however, in the next. Okay.
Sir. సార్ మీరు ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తుంది చాలా ఈజీగా అర్థమవుతుంది సార్. ఎందుకంటే మీరు 3 లాంగ్వేజ్ లో ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తున్నారు కదా సార్ ఒకటే మ్యాటర్ ని. అది ఈజీగా అర్థమైపోతుంది సార్. థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్ సార్.
వెల్కమ్.
What is theory oriented and theory directed? Like difference between that is
very good. Theory oriented and theory diverse.
Directed, sir.
Theory oriented is nothing but oriented in the sense means truly which is related to the concerned topic. Theory oriented means if anything can be studied systematic way, it is called theory oriented. Okay. If anything which it can be studied very particularly, very scientifically, it can be called it as a theory oriented. Theory diversified in the sense means and studying the particular, part of the political science into the different theories, different systems. It's called theory diversified. Okay. So, ఒకటే విషయాన్ని సిస్టమేటిక్ గా చదవడం థియరీ ఓరియంటెడ్ అవుతుంది. ఒక విషయాన్ని రకరకాలుగా చదవడం థియరీ డైవర్సిఫై అవుతుంది. ఓకేనా?
So then what is theory directed?
Theory
directed.
Truly related to the theory.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Anything, still I'll take it as a 2 to 3 minutes of a doubt, which is an exclusively subject matter. Not
sir, how to make notes for exam, sir?
Well, I'm teaching, and when you are reading the book, you have to highlight the side headings and you have to highlight the topics. Okay? Whatever you're understanding while you're writing, you need to note it down on a paper, so that next reading will be that all the points is going to become an important for the exam.
Sir, behavioralism also.
Sorry?
Behavioralism.
Behavioralism.
Yes, sir.
Okay, which language you are comfortable to, explain to you the particular
English,
thing?
sir. English.
English. Okay.
In English, sir.
Behavioralism is nothing but to understand the changes, to understand the different political behavior of a countries, like voting behavior, how they are, behaving at the time of voting, how political behavior, whether the country follows a presidential form of government or, it follows a parliamentary form of government. All these kinds of, behaviors, understanding the behavioralism. Simple. So behavioralism, you don't add the ism, cut it and keep it aside. You understand behavior. Say, for example, you may also tell others your behavior is not good. Okay. How do you say behavior is not good? Means the way he is talking, the way he is walking, the way he is seeing, the way he is, kind of an, gesture. It's all our, if it is right, that is good behavior. If it is wrong, bad behavior. So the polity also in the 1960s and after 19s before, the political science as David Easton and Charles Merriam, American scholars have started to understand the entire political science into the behavioralism. So to understand the, America's political system, to understand the India's political system, within the India, how, individuals, voting behavior, how, government behaving with the individual, and in order to providing the rights, all together it comes under the behavioralism. Simple.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can you explain this in Telugu also?
Short definition about modern approach, sir.
Sorry, I am using Nagasri, but I can't truly go with them in Telugu because this is English medium class. Hope you understand clearly. Anybody? Someone is telling me. Meaning of value neutral means if it the value, if it is not changes, that it can be called as a value neutral. Ananya, someone asked the question.
Sir, the difference between the system theory and system approach.
Sorry?
The difference between system theory and systems approach. Like system theory is a part of approach itself. I didn't get it.
You should at least ask me the very one doubt so that I can ask, listen it. I'm not able to listen your. Meaning of modern approach is that anything which is changes in the political science, that it can be understood in the modern approaches.
Modern approach definition.
Modern approach. So, however, these are all the sessions and I've done. I think maybe you have other class. I don't know to disturb you all. Please join in other class. Okay. And see you everyone. Thank you so much to being with us, with me, and bye bye everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. సార్ వెళ్ళిపోయింది కానీ ఏంటి డిస్టర్బెన్స్
సార్ వెళ్ళిపోయినట్టున్నారు. హలో, శ్రీనివాసరావు, ఎక్కడి నుంచి మీరు ఎక్కడి నుంచి అండి?